Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker for tonight. Mr. Tom Spellman began his career in horticulture in 1973, working for a small retail nursery while attending school. He used to ride a skateboard to work. In 1977, he went to work for a local landscape nursery where he learned the basics of landscape design, developed an interest in growing nursery stock. In 1979, Tom accepted a position with Armstrong Nurseries in Ontario. There he worked with the wholesale growing division during the week and retail sales on the weekend. In 1981, Tom went to work for Verne Nursery in Verne and San Dimas. This nursery specializes in the production and sales of avocado, citrus, subtropical, and deciduous fruit trees. There, under the supervision of Dieter Lodder, his interest in propagation and production of fruiting plants was greatly expanded. Tom soon became general manager and continued to work with Verne for 20 years. In 2001, Tom was offered the Southwestern sales manager position with Dave Wilson Nursery. Dave Wilson is one of the largest fruit and nut tree producers in the USA. Tom also does work in radio, television, video, writes articles, and conducts lectures and workshops on fruit growing in the Southwest. And just so you know, Tom, your videos have inspired me quite a bit. That's how I discovered, that's how I managed to fit 300 trees in my orchard, was under your YouTube tutelage. So welcome up. You've got it.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming in, allowing me an hour or so to give you some of my philosophies on fruit growing. And after doing this for over 50 years now, I will tell you that sales is a lot easier than production. So I've been blessed. I love my career. I can retire anytime I want, but I'm nowhere near that. I'm not going to step down. I want to make sure that I continue to service the customers that I've had and the friends that I've built up over the years, including many of you in this room who I've known for probably the better part of 30 or 35 years, some of you. So tonight's presentation is antioxidants from your garden. It's something that I've put together over the last few years just to kind of promote fruit growing of high antioxidant value fruits. And what a great hobby we have, and what a great job that I have, because what you guys do for a hobby, I get to do for a living. And I get to do all kinds of trials. I've worked with all kinds of people all around the country and even all around the world. I've done projects in probably 20 different states in the US, and I've done projects overseas, even one large agricultural project in China. So I have always considered myself luckier than smart, and I've worked with some great mentors over the years. Dieter Lodder, still one of my best friends and a wonderful man. Was working for him for 20 years was an education you can't buy. So I'm blessed, and I love what I do, and I'm going to keep doing it. So like it or not. So antioxidants from your garden is a presentation on varieties that are high antioxidant value fruits. The antioxidant scale is based on what they call the ORAC scale, which is oxygen radical absorbance capacity. All food has an antioxidant value. Some are much higher than others. So if you eat green beans, you eat a lettuce salad with a few vegetables in it, you're getting a certain amount of antioxidants from all those things. But the human body needs to sustain itself properly, requires between 3,000 and 6,000 ORAC units per day. When I put this together, it was very hard to find information on how antioxidants were calculated and on exactly how much antioxidant value was in a lot of these fruits. So I've updated it a bit. What I've based my number on, if you look at, say, blueberries, we're basing it on 2,500 ORAC units. And I think, did you guys put this up on your website, or did you guys get this handout? I sent it to Jeff, was it? Okay, well, I guess he'll be probably putting this handout up on your website. So yes, Julie. An antioxidant is an element in your system that will oxidize harmful radicals in your system. So antioxidant valued fruits or antioxidant foods can easily help to suppress blood diseases, cancers, different things along those lines that we don't want to have to deal with. So the more antioxidants that we take in, the healthier we should be. And you guys as fruit growers, we're going to live to be 100. So, antioxidants are wonderful. So what I base this on is about a 3.5 ounce serving of each fruit variety. That's a handful of blueberries. That's a small plum. That's a half an avocado. So, everybody would probably be eating about a 3.5 ounce serving of those fruits. So that's what the number's based on. It's not accurate by any means. If you measured a handful of blueberries, you'd probably get all kinds of different numbers in there, but this is just an approximation for the purpose of putting this together. So if we what am I pointing at, John? That? I don't have to point? Okay, it's on. Click it for me, John. Oh, good. Not moving? Oh, we got it. Maybe. Okay. So here's a basic scale, considering that 3.5 ounce serving of all of these different fruit varieties. And these are the varieties that I've chosen for this presentation. What do all these varieties have in common? Color, exactly. The darker the color, the higher the antioxidant value for the fruit. And we've even measured different varieties with different colorations. Like I've measured a dark red pomegranate like Parfianca or Ariana or Wonderful against some of the lighter pomegranates like Sweet or Eversweet or Pink Satin. By far, the dark red pigmented varieties have a much higher antioxidant value than the lighter pigmented varieties. So it has a lot to do with the color in itself. So, and you can see all of these items on here all have a darker color, a red color, a pink color. I mean, avocados might be the exception, but even avocados have I couldn't leave out avocados. In honor of Julie, absolutely. We have to discuss avocados. One of my favorite foods. I try and eat an avocado or half an avocado every single day. So they had to go into the presentation. Click it for me, John. If there's going to be a technical issue, it's going to happen to me. So first off, let's talk about pomegranate. Pomegranate has an approximate antioxidant value of about 2,900 to 3,000 ORAC units per a 3.5 ounce serving of fruit. So pomegranate's an ancient fruit. It goes back, documented, it goes back over 5,000 years and probably well beyond that in ancient times. So pomegranate was one of those fruits that could be moved around the spice roads by the early travelers. It was something that was oftentimes naturalized in different areas through the Arabian Peninsula, all the way up into the stands, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, all the way up into Russia. There was a gentleman by the name of Dr. Gregory Levin, ran the Gariella Research Station in Turkmenistan in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and he basically had to abandon his work when the Russian government originally fell apart. And Dr. Levin had put together a collection of over 1,000 different pomegranates. And he wrote on those, he discussed those, he traveled all around the natural region and collected varieties. And one of the things that Levin concluded, for me, John, there were a lot of really good varieties, but one of Levin's favorites, in fact, what he claimed to be the best pomegranate in the world, was this variety called Parthionka. So when I first started working for Dave Wilson Nursery, I was able to tour the collection at Wolfskill Field Station up at UC Davis. And Jeff Morsfelter, that was the curator of that collection at that time, they have about 240 varieties in that collection, and I've been through it. I think I've tasted almost every one more than once. Some of them you only had to taste once, but varieties like Parthionka were standouts. Thought this is really a good piece of fruit, and there are very few examples of a fruit where I will tell you that I consider one variety to be above board with the best variety out there. But Parthionka pomegranate, I have to agree with Levin. I think it's about as good as you're going to get as far as size, as far as color, as far as flavor, as far as being a high antioxidant value variety. That's Jeff right there. So that's actually a Parthionka that he has in his hand. So pomegranate is it's kind of a desert plant. It doesn't necessarily need to be. So when it's naturalized, it can live on natural rainfall and probably somewhere between 4 and 5 and 10 inches of rain a year. Plant will survive and actually do well. But the fruit quality is what you're going to lack. If it doesn't get a few regular irrigations throughout the year, you're not going to have a really good fruit quality. So you want to make sure that through the blooming season, through the growing season, through the ripening season for the fruit, that you're giving it several good irrigations, good thorough deep irrigations through the summer. And there are all kinds of methods, all kinds of ways that you can grow pomegranate. This is an example of what we would call a patio tree or a stand. And a lot of commercial growers like to grow pomegranates in that fashion, but this is what you normally get. This is a pomegranate that's just kind of out on its own at the end of a field. It doesn't get any irrigation other than the field right next to it, and they're still a big, beautiful green bush. They'll grow, they'll do fine. You can culture it any way you want. You want to make an espalier out of it, you want to make a hedgerow out of it, you use it as a screen, you want to grow it as a shrub, you want to grow it as a single trunk tree or a multi-trunk tree. You can do all of those things. But I'm telling you from personal experience, it's much easier to grow it in a shrub form than it is to try and culture it into a tree. So here's an orchard of pomegranates. It's very close to Dave Wilson Nursery up in Northern California, Sierra foothills, east of Modesto, about 35 miles. So this is the way a farmer would like to grow them as a standard tree like that, but they're constantly out there keeping them suckered and keeping the shoots off the base so that they can cultivate around them, keep the ground clean around them. So this is a little more difficult way to manage the plant than if you're growing it in a shrub. Go ahead. So let's move on to blueberries. Blueberries are about 2,500 ORAC units for 3.5 to 4 ounce serving of fruit. Blueberries are very, very diverse as far as their adaptability. We've got varieties that'll take the coldest climates in this country. We have varieties that'll take the coastal conditions in California. Blueberries are one of those things that very, very difficult to grow in the ground in our soils in Southern California. They don't like the alkalinity of our soil. They don't like the alkalinity of our water. So it's much easier to grow blueberries in a large container or in a raised bed with a screen bottom using an amended media. I'm going to use a media that's about 1/3 peat moss, about 1/3 finely ground bark, and 1/3 very sandy, fast draining potting soil or sand. As long as you keep it very organic and very fast draining, you'll be successful with blueberries. So to try and do that in our soils, if you have a heavy clay soil and you dig your hole and you use that amendment in the hole, well, you've just planted it in a bowl that doesn't drain very well. So drainage is critical. Keeping it slightly acidic as far as the pH is critical to the success of blueberries. So I've found growing 3 or 4 varieties in a half barrel, you get good cross-pollination, you get successive ripening fruit, early, mid-season, late season, very easy to control in that half barrel type style or in some kind of a raised bed. If you do a raised bed, put a screen bottom in there so you don't have gopher issue coming up to get them, because gophers absolutely love blueberries and they will take them out in short order, keep them out of it. So blueberries are great, very diverse plant. One of the things you'll find about this presentation is all of these plant varieties are very diverse in their adaptabilities, very diverse in the conditions that they'll take. You've got everything in here from large trees, small trees, shrub form material, vines, ground covers, kind of covers the whole gamut of different things that we can do in our landscape. And that's what we want to do in as fruit growers in Southern California. That's what we want. We want to encourage variety, so we have multiple plantings of successive ripening varieties. We want to be able to use different parts of our landscape for different types of plant material. So you can do different things with all of these different plant types through your landscape. So blueberries, best in containers, best in raised beds, very high in antioxidants. The ones that I have in half barrels, very, very manageable. If you have a bird problem, you get 6-foot chicken wire, half-inch chicken wire. You create a tube that you can set up over that barrel and down, cut out a round top and put that top on. The birds never can get to it, and you can pull that off and eat all the blueberries you want, put that back on and walk away. So I found that to be very, very successful method. John. So here's an example of where we're going to get flowers on blueberries. Fruits are created in the early or late winter, early spring on last year's growth. So pruning methodology for blueberries is very important. If you winter prune your blueberries, every cut that you make takes away fruit for the next season. So what you want to do is you want to grow your crop in the spring, harvest your berries. They're going to come in from April to about July 1st. And once the plants are done fruiting in early July, that's when you do your pruning. You prune them back severely, and you let that new flesh grow out in August, September, October. And that wood that goes dormant right now is the wood that you're going to get your spring set on. So no winter pruning on blueberries, only midsummer pruning after the crop is done. So, and blueberries, you in a container, the trick is you want to keep the plants in balance with the container that you've given it to grow in. So if I have a 33-gallon half wine barrel and I've got 2 or 3 varieties in there, I don't want the overall structure of the plant to become any larger than the root zone that I've given it to grow in. That's going to eliminate most of the physical stress, and it's going to give you a good quality fruit production, long, stable flower. So being able to keep those varieties in tune with the root zone you've given it to grow in is really important. So a little bit of central pruning just to open up the center, and then just taking back the overall structure to encourage that new growth. We just talked about all that. Let's go on. This is, well, we talked about that also. This is the soil recommendation. So you have that peat moss and bark and a very sandy type potting soil or sandy mix or azalea mix. Example of some blueberries in containers. Interesting variety. And again, how many people have this variety, pink lemonade? 2 people, that's it? 3, 4, good. I love this variety. And if I was a commercial blueberry grower, this would be 50% of my crop, because blueberries, which are actually higher in antioxidant value than the pinks, are bringing on the wholesale market about $4 to $6 a pound. Pink lemonade brings 20. So if I was a commercial grower, that's the variety I'd be concentrating on. The dessert chefs love it. They're using it on cheesecakes and all kinds of different preparations in restaurants, and they mix it in with some of the blueberries and give you that pink accent. But and it's got a great flavor. That's a really nice variety, Martha. That much better? No, but all blueberries, aren't they? I don't think I've ever eaten blueberry I didn't like, except one that came out of the grocery store. Go ahead, John. So blackberry, raspberry, boysenberry. You can throw loganberries in there if you want. Those are all what we call caneberries, and there's different types of caneberries that are available. You can get the varieties that they call prime cane now, which produce on brand new wood. So if I'm growing a prime cane variety like Caroline raspberry or Primark Freedom blackberry, I can actually mow those down to the ground every winter, and the new growth is where I get my fruit. Most of the other conventional varieties that have been on the market for a while, you have to culture every year to bring up last year's cane, and that's where you're going to get your fruit on last year's growth in the spring and summer, and then you let the new growth come up from the base through the spring and summer. At the end in fall, when production is done, you cut out the old cane, you bring up the new cane. So you're rejuvenating every year. So it's a little more difficult than the prime cane varieties. There aren't many prime cane varieties available on the market right now, but the two that I mentioned are readily available: Caroline red raspberry and Primark Freedom blackberry. So if you don't like that old-fashioned methodology of having to rejuvenate that cane every year, these you can just mow down, let the new growth come up, and that's what you do. Of course, you're missing some of the important varieties like Fall Gold, golden raspberry with red blush. That's a exceptionally good flavored variety. And then again, lighter color on the Fall Gold, less antioxidant value, but super delicious fruit. So first year, you put your plugs in the ground and cut them off at about 8 or 12 inches and grow those plants out. So then you're going to bring up that cane that grows out in September, October, November, and you're going to let that cane go dormant. That cane is where you're going to get your fruit season. So you can keep it mowed off on the top. You're going to get your production all through that season, midsummer and into fall. So year after year after year, you're rejuvenating that, always taking out the old cane at the end of the year and bringing up the new cane that grew out. So that's where those prime cane varieties are come in a little more handy. So plum, dark colored plums, dark red to black plums, 1,000 to 1,500 ORAC units per 3.5 ounce serving. So now we're talking tree fruits, we're talking stone fruits. So not a vine, not something that we can control in a container very well, but a tree that we're actually going to have to grow out into our landscape. So on a plum, we have all kinds of choices. We have red varieties, we have dark purple varieties, we have green fleshed, yellow fleshed, we have every kind of plum, pluot, interspecifics that we can grow all through Southern California. Some varieties are very high chill. You're going to look for the low chill varieties for Southern California. So you want Santa Rosa, you want Burgundy, you want Flavor King pluot, you want Emerald Drop pluot, you want varieties like that that are going to be 200, 250, 300 chill hours, and you're going to get decent fruit production. You go with some of the higher chill varieties, you're going to get much less production. Now, this year was kind of an exception. In my orchard in my house, I normally get somewhere between 150 and 250 chill hours every week. This year, I had 600. So I've never seen 600 before. So I had varieties producing fruit this year that I haven't seen fruit on in 5 years. So that was fun, but I don't expect that to happen every year. When we're lucky and we get a good cold year, well, I'll get some fruit on those varieties, but it's not going to be an every year thing. So if I'm growing a plum tree, they can get pretty good sized. They can easily get 10, 15, 20, 25 foot. I don't want a 25-foot plum tree. I don't want to have to climb a ladder, climb up into a tree to thin or prune or pick fruit. So when I'm getting a plum tree, I'm going to look for a nice young year-old tree. And the first cut I'm going to make is cutting that thing down to about 2 feet or 2.5 feet. Then I'm going to grow that out through the first year, develop a little bit of structure on it. I'm going to come back and I'm going to check that growth in half one more time. So now we're starting to develop a little bit of spur wood underneath. This is probably after the second full year, going into the third year. I can keep it checked. And now, since I made that first cut, that first drastic cut down at 24 to 30 inches, now I can develop a nice low structure, and I can always keep that tree managed as a large shrub or a small tree. If you're looking for those trees in the nursery that have a big old tall trunk and a little head up on top, that's already too big. I don't want to start with something that's already too big. So I'm going to start with something little where I can keep that tree managed at a small size for its life. So most of my stone fruits, and that means peach, plum, nectarine, apricot, cherries, varieties that ripen over a short period of time, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you're going to get all that fruit at one time. Those trees are this high. I don't want to have to do any ladder work. I don't want to have to drag out a pole picker. I want to be able to do all that pruning, all that thinning, all that harvesting from ground level. So on anything that ripens in a short period of time, I keep the trees managed at about 7.5 or 8 feet. I don't want to have to go up and do any more work than I have to. So if it's something like a citrus or an avocado where I'm going to get months worth of harvest instead of just a couple of weeks, that tree can get 10, 12, 14 feet tall, and I can easily manage that tree with a 10-foot pole and a basket picker, go out every week and pick 6 or 8 or 10 reed avocados or Hass avocados or Eureka lemons or whatever I'm working on, and I can have enough fruit for the week and then go back next week and do the same thing. So it's easy to manage a larger tree if the fruit holds for a longer period of time. So on plums, make sure that you're looking for varieties that are adaptable to your climate on a rootstock that's adaptable to your soil conditions. We're growing plums I grow Santa Rosa plum on 5 different rootstocks. Well, one of them is adaptable to Southern California. One of them is adaptable to Yuma, Arizona. One of them is adaptable to Boise, Idaho. One of them will take wet, heavy soils. One of them likes a sandy, dry soil better. So there are rootstocks that are adaptable to all different climates and all different geographies. Choosing your rootstock is absolutely as important as choosing your cultivar. So make sure you're looking for varieties that are not only production adaptable, but also rootstock adaptable to your climate and soil. Yes. That's a great question. Now, if you're buying a tree that's grown by Dave Wilson Nursery, the question was, do you find that information on the tag of the tree? And my comment is, if you're buying a tree that is grown by Dave Wilson Nursery, we put 2 tags on the tree. One of them is a cultivar tag that tells you about the variety. Does it require cross-pollination? What the chill hours are? What fruit quality is? The second is a tag that describes the rootstock itself. So that way you know what you're getting and you're not gambling. If you don't have a rootstock description on there, you don't know whether it's a rootstock that's adaptable to your climate. You know, we're growing Santa Rosa plum on St. Julian rootstock. The main attribute of St. Julian rootstock is it's adaptable to 20 below zero. Not very important here in Orange County, but if I have a heavy clay soil, I'm going to look for a rootstock called Citation. If I have a good sandy soil in Orange County, I'm going to look for a rootstock called Myrobalan 29C, and I'm going to get a tree that's going to be adaptable, stable, long-lived, and productive. Most of the time when people fail, it's because they didn't plant the wrong cultivar. They planted the right cultivar on the wrong rootstock. Go ahead. Go ahead. I got a little carried away with some diagram. So cherry. 10 years, no, let's say 20 years ago, I would have told you, don't waste your time with cherries in Orange County, because we had varieties like Bing and Black Tartarian and Van, Stella that were not necessarily adaptable to low chill conditions. Well, thanks to the genius of Floyd Zager, we now have a number of low chill varieties. Low chill enough for Huntington Beach, Oceanside, Malibu, maybe not, but low chill enough for North Orange County, absolutely. So if you're going to grow cherries, you want to make sure that you're growing some of the new low chill varieties. The ones that are available on the market for retail sale are Mini Royal, Royal Lee, and Royal Crimson. Those are all varieties that are rated at about 300 chill hours. Now, cherries are very adaptable, and cherries can be a very big tree. So I love this diagram. Again, same principle. I'm going to get a young tree. I'm going to cut it off at about 20 inches or so, and I'm going to grow it up. This is actually an espalier technique. So cherries espalier very nicely and make an absolutely beautiful specimen. So that's after first year in the ground. You're bringing out those lateral branches and you're tying them up on a wire system. And you don't even need to. You can just point them in the direction that you want. Anything that grows out of bounds, you can cut off. Anything that grows within bounds, you leave it and let it do its thing. But they structure very well on a trellis system. So second year. So that would be third year, training it out. You've got, after making that secondary cut, you've got multi-breaks from that secondary cut, and you can start to fan those out and work with the structure. Same basic principle. Now, you got to remember, cherries produce on what we call spur wood. So where a peach or a nectarine is going to produce on last season's growth, a cherry or an apple or a pear, they need to develop fruiting spurs. And those fruiting spurs will develop down within the lower structure, not out on the long, new lateral or the long, new vigorous growth. So when you see that spur wood, you'll notice that that's where the blooms come from. And a cherry or an apple or a pear can actually bloom and produce off of those spurs for many years. So the last thing you want to do is start removing those spurs. I had somebody that called me a few years ago and they said, well, I got one of your Mini Royal and Royal Lee cherries, and I prune it really nice every year and it never flowers. So send me a picture of what you're doing. Well, she didn't like the look of the spurs, so she was pruning all the spurs off from the interior of the tree. So everything that should bloom and set fruit, she was removing in favor of long, vigorous top growth. She was considering that a cherry was going to produce like a peach or a nectarine. So after several years, you get a really nice fan structure. You can grow that cherry tree in a planter box that's 18 inches or 2 feet wide if you want, and 8 feet tall, 12 feet wide, however you want to do it. So just to show you the diversification of that variety. Just because it's a tree doesn't mean you need to grow it as a tree. You need to make it fit your landscape needs. You need to put it in an area where you want to grow it, where it's adaptable for you. So I love espaliered fruit trees. I've got many, many espaliered fruit trees in my landscape, and I've worked on projects over the years where we've done dozens of espaliered fruit trees. I'm in a residential landscape, that's a real space saver. So blood orange. Blood orange is, now we're talking citrus. So what do you want to do with citrus? You want to espalier it. You want to grow it as a shrub on a dwarfing rootstock. You want to grow it as a standard tree with a head up to 10 or 12 or 15 feet. That's fine. You can do all of those things with citrus. Blood orange, was by far, this is Tarraco, by the way, but blood oranges by far were the highest in antioxidant value. The varieties that will develop the best red, dark red colors would be Moro and a variety called Sanguinelli. This Tarraco is kind of a blushed variety. It doesn't get a good full true color, but still very high in antioxidant value. So here you go. You want to put it on a trellis. You want to grow it in a container. Citrus are very, very adaptable. You want to make sure right now with the ACP HLB quarantine that you guys as club members, conscientious club members, you're not moving citrus propagation material around at all. You don't want to move citrus budwood or even citrus foliage around. It needs to stay on your property. Only clean fruit can move around. And even that in some areas is being restricted right now. So we also have a new fruit fly quarantine. So there are restrictions on moving fruit from certain areas to other areas. Just pay attention and be conscious of the quarantines. If you're buying or working with any citrus, make sure you're buying a registered tag plant with a CDFA registration number on the tag so you know that it's clean stock. That's the only thing you want to move into your landscape. You can also, if you want to do some grafting work, you can buy budwood from the state of California from the Citrus Research Board, and that's going to be clean, registered budwood, no bacterias or viruses. So you can use that as well. But be careful with citrus. You don't want to bring in something off of somebody else's property at this point in time. So red and black grapes, something completely different. Grapes are grown as a vine, so I can put these on any kind of a trellis structure that I want. I can arbor, I can grow them on a chain link fence, or I can simply grow them as a headed vine. There's all kinds of different methodology on grape growing. This is actually a Cabernet Sauvignon vineyard that's right down the street from Dave Wilson Nursery. We get all of our cab cuttings from this guy. So what you want to take into consideration with grapes is there's two different styles of pruning, and each variety will be classified as either a cane type or a spur type. So that's going to determine how you're going to prune your grape for production. So for the first couple of years, you simply put your plant in the ground, face it off on the structure that you want it to grow on. So I'm gonna plant it. I'm gonna get a trellis or a fence or an arbor or whatever post and wire system I want to grow my grapevine on, and I'm gonna structure it. The first 2 years are gonna be dedicated to filling that structure. And after that, I'm gonna go to one of the two different styles of pruning. So this variety, some grape varieties will grow using both styles of pruning. This happens to be one of those. So you can see the cane that I'm standing right behind, and the short spurs that are right underneath the cane. So that's a good representation of both different styles. So those short spurs are last year's growth cut down to 2 or 3 or 4 buds, and that's where you're going to get your flowers from, and that's where you're going to get your new grape crop from. The cane is an 18-inch to 24-inch section of cane that will produce out toward the end of the cane, a flower out toward the end of the cane. Now, if you don't know what variety of grape you have, and you don't know what type of pruning it requires, you would prune it 1 year cane type. You would leave 18 inches to 24 inches of last year's cane, and then you look at it when it blooms and you see, did it bloom down here very close to the main trunk, or did it bloom out toward the end of those canes? And that's going to determine how you would prune it going forward. If it blooms out toward the end, you're going to cane prune it. If it blooms down close to the where it comes off the vine itself, then you would spur prune it going forward. So that's an example of spur pruning right there. You have multiple breaks, multiple vines that are coming off that structure every year, and you're going to take that back to everywhere you have a multiple break. You're going to prune it back to 1. You're going to prune that down to 2 or 3 or 4 buds. That's spur pruning. There's another example of spur pruning. So that's an example of a true cane prune variety in a headed style. So you see, they're always giving it something for those vines to grow on. They're cane pruning. They've got a wire system there, and they tie those canes out onto the wire so that they're supporting them. That way, the fruit crop will be supported, and they have something to tie up that new growth on. So there's another example of cane pruning. Okay. There's a little villa that my wife and I saw when we were in Germany. Thought that was really cool the way they grew those up on above the windows and made that part of the architecture of the house. I thought that was good. Go ahead. So black and green olives. What's better than a beautiful old olive tree? My favorite tree in my landscape is about a 60 to 70-year-old Sevillano. It's got a big, gnarly trunk on it, all full of burls at the base and a really nice structure. It's right out our front door. It's a great tree. What's the difference between a black and a green olive? Physical ripeness, absolutely. You can pick olives when they're green. If you allow them to fully ripen up, they'll turn black. So there's really no difference at all, except again, antioxidant value. Much higher antioxidant value on a black olive than on a green olive. But you know what? They're done right, they all taste good. So again, you want to do something different? Here's my friend John Realhorn with 25-gallon Spellman diamond-shaped olive trees. And he sold a fair amount of those to a big hotel in San Francisco, and they're the focal point of their courtyard. Make it fit your purpose. Make it fit your landscape needs. You don't have to grow a tree like a tree. So strawberries, ground cover. So I want something to plant underneath all my other trees and shrubs and low space on the ground. Strawberry. I have a collection of about, probably less than 10, 8 or 9 different strawberry varieties, from little tiny white alpine strawberries to variegated strawberries, pink flowering strawberries. The darker the color, the more physical ripeness you get, the higher the antioxidant value. We buy strawberries at the market nowadays. What are they trying to achieve? Size, absolutely. They want that berry to be as big as the palm of your hand, and then they're charging top dollar for that, and they're usually about 10 days or 2 weeks away from actually being physically ripe when you buy them at the market. So homegrown strawberries, absolutely delicious. You can use them as a ground cover. You can use them as an understory in container plantings. You can grow them in a hanging basket. My friend A.G. Kawamura down at the Great Park had a great demonstration strawberry garden in what they call towers. So they were about 12-inch wide tubes that were 8 feet tall and had cubby holes all through. They filled them with soil. They planted a strawberry plug in each of the holes, so they're up off the ground. You don't have any problem with rotting. You don't have any problem with snails or slugs or sow bugs. So there's all kinds of different things you can do with strawberries to make them fit your garden needs in your space. But it's another diversification. It's another type of plant where we can incorporate it in, have another fruit variety in our garden that's going to give us a usable plant type that is going to produce fruit for us. Avocado, Julie's favorite. So I couldn't leave avocados out. They weren't the highest in antioxidant value, but they're better than most. They're better than most. So what's better than a good fresh reed avocado? I look forward to those every year. I've got 7 avocado trees in my landscape now. A couple of them thanks to Julie, and I eat an avocado or half an avocado every single day, and so does my wife. So all the different phytonutrients, all the different vitamins, and minerals, and what a great category, and what a great area you guys live in to grow wonderful avocados. So I hope you all have at least 2 or 3 or 4 avocados in your collection, and I'm sure some of you have way more than I do. But that's one of my favorite fruits. In fact, I don't want to tell my boss this, but I took out 15 different stone fruit trees about 4 years ago so that I could plant more avocado trees. So can you keep avocados and mangoes that are naturally large to 10 feet? You absolutely you can. You can keep anything pruned to any size you want. It's tougher to keep a large tree small than to keep a small tree small. You may have to bring it back down and restructure it if you're not starting when it's little. But my philosophy on avocados is I don't need to keep them at 8 feet or 9 feet tall. I can grow an avocado tree to 15 feet and easily manage it with a 10-foot pole and a basket picker, because the fruit hangs on for months, not just a couple of weeks or 3 weeks. So my avocados are going to be bigger than my peaches and plums and nectarines and apricots. But, definitely it's just a matter of management to keep an avocado any size you want. Oh, go to the next one. So this is my grandmother's fuerte avocado tree. And this is a tree that I remember going back to when I was a very, very young child. She used to give me a half a fuerte avocado and a spoon. I'd eat the avocado. And that tree, I climbed around that tree when I was 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. I love that tree. And this is probably 20 years ago, I drove by my grandmother's old house and the tree was still there. And I thought, I'm going to go knock on the door and see if they'll let me climb the tree. So I did, and I explained it to them. First, they looked at me like, this guy crazy? What's he want to do? And I said, look, my grandmother lived here when I was a kid, and I loved this. This is one of my earliest memories. It's climbing around this tree. I'd just like to go climb it and then take a picture. All right, go ahead. So, and they let me pick some fruit, which was kind of fun. So it's an early memory. It goes back over 60 years for me that I remember that tree, and it really hadn't changed much in many, many, many years. So that's a gift, to have a tree like that in your landscape. It's big, it's beautiful, it's bold, it gives you lots of shade, gives you hundreds of fruit every year. The nice thing about avocados is you can go outside and go $1, $2, $3, $4, $5, $6, and it's an investment. A good avocado tree is an investment. You're gonna spend $50 or $100 on a tree, but after 4, 5, 6 years, when you start to get your crop and you can go out there and look at it in a dollar per dollar value, I wish all of my investments gave me as much as my avocado trees do. It'd be absolutely wonderful. So this is my absolute favorite tree in the world. I was really happy that I could go back. And unfortunately, I drove by 3 or 4 years ago and it's gone now. But it had a good long life. Just many, many thousands of fruit. So avocados, what do they really need to succeed? Number one, they need good drainage. They don't like to be in a heavy, wet soil. They don't like to be planted too deep. If you're going to plant them, you plant them on a little bit of a rise, 3, 4, 6 inches, mound up around them a little bit. They also like a lot of organics on the surface. So when those avocado leaves fall, you leave them right there. You don't have the gardener blow those away. You make sure that you have plenty of leaf litter underneath those trees. And you give them, good, thorough, deep irrigations, and don't let them go dry. They don't like to go dry. So, but you don't want to keep them wet all the time. They don't want to be on the timer for 4 minutes a day. You want to water them during the hottest part of the year a couple of times a week thoroughly, This time of year, you probably shut the irrigation off if we get normal amount of rain. I don't know what you guys got last night, but I had 0.8 of an inch from the storm last night, which I thought was pretty good. What'd you get? 0.55? Yeah, so I got, just a little bit above that. So I love this rain. I hope that this year is 2/3 as wet as last year. That would keep me very happy. So avocados are also, even in Orange County, even in Huntington Beach, avocados are very susceptible to sunburn damage. So you got to figure that, all those trees in the nursery row are grown can to can. They're, just a couple inches, 6 inches apart. And now you take that tree home that's been shaded by the tree next to it and the tree next to that, and the tree next to that, and you plant it out in your landscape. The day you plant it, you should be whitewashing all that green bark on there, protected against sunburn. Once you get a sunburn damage, and that can happen in just a couple of days during the hot part of the year, it's very, very difficult for avocados to recover. More people lose avocados because they either plant them in too wet a soil, they don't have good drainage, or they don't protect them from sunburn. So as long as you're protecting them from sunburn, they have good drainage, you're allowing that organic material to build up around them, you're going to have great avocados. So one of the things we've done at Dave Wilson over the years is we have our own YouTube channel. We call it FruitTube. And there's about 120 different videos up there now on all different kinds of things, on growing fruit, on pruning fruit trees, on using fruit, on visiting horticultural collections. In fact, one of my favorites, is Julie at the South Coast Research and Extension Center. We toured the avocado collection. So that's still one of my favorite videos. If you guys want to see Julie and I dancing, probably check that one out. Right? Come on. So DaveWilson.com. Go to the Fruit Tube and you can check out those videos. We also have a very informative home garden page that tells you all about different types of fruit growing, variety descriptions, rootstock descriptions, anything and everything related to fruit growing from a home gardener's perspective. Any questions? Yes. Mini Royal and Royal League.
Yeah, in my neighborhood, and nobody's ever bloomed at the same time. We're fruit freaks, so we bought them when they first came out, and everybody had one of each.
One of the reasons that we released Royal Crimson, is
so
because it blooms in the middle of the other two. Now, also, and one thing I'll say, I've never had that problem. But what you want to do is you make sure that you're feeding for a strong flower set. One of the things that I've noticed is if you're not getting a lot of P and K and trace elements in your fertilizer program, you get a very short bloom period. So you get minimal overlap, sometimes just a couple of days, if any at all. But if you're feeding with a high concentration of P and K, zinc, iron, and manganese, you'll have a much stronger, longer bloom period. All my cherries bloom for over 30 days this year. No, it'll bloom by itself, but it interblooms with the other two. Mini Royal comes in first, Royal Crimson comes in second, Royal Lee comes in third. So if you have all three, you get plenty of overlap. Any other questions? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you could probably replant with another citrus into that location. What I would make sure, do you know what rootstock your lemon lime combination is on? Is it a standard tree? Is it a dwarf tree? It's a dwarf. Well, lemons and limes get really big anyways. Even as a dwarf, Eureka lemon will get 20 feet. So I would try and make sure that the Tangelo that you're putting in is on a different rootstock than the lemon lime combination, which more than likely it will be anyway. They typically don't use the same rootstocks for two. Pardon? You air layered it? So it's not grafted? Give it a shot. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's no difference in the interior color. The red color is the peel only. Color. Yes. Well, we've actually found that mini royal and royal leaf will actually set fruit in isolation, but just not that much. So, if you get 20 fruit in isolation, you're going to get 200 fruit pollination. So I don't think they set enough that I would recommend them as being truly self-fruitful. Yeah. Well, yeah, there's all kinds of bacterial issues you could get. It could be a bacterial canker, or some kind of a gamosis or something like that. So you want to make sure that you're using best management practices. When you irrigate thoroughly, let it go slightly dry in between. You don't want to irrigate the trunks. You don't want to irrigate too often. You don't want them to stay wet at night. So, any of those things that you can do, you want to make sure you're whitewashing the trunks on those to prevent against borer infestation. So they're cherries are kind of out of their element, so they're susceptible to all kinds of issues and stuff. Yes, absolutely. So fertilizer is something that you want to make sure you're using when the tree it needs it. So if you looked at a tree's year kind of like our day, we're going to wake up in the morning and want breakfast. So before that tree starts to come into bloom, end of January, early February, that's when you want to get breakfast on. About mid-April, you want to give it a light lunch. About maybe end of June, you want to give it dinner. So my philosophy on feeding is 6 months on, 6 months off. And that goes for everything: stone fruit, palm fruits, citrus, avocados. I don't like to feed late into the summer because we have a hard enough time achieving dormancy here in Southern California anyway. So if I'm feeding in August or September or October, that's kind of like going to Starbucks at 11 p.m. and getting the venti frappuccino with an extra shot of espresso and thinking you're going to go home and go to sleep. So I better have a 5 or 6 hour drive or a 2,000 word article, right? Because Tommy ain't sleeping. And the trees are the same way. So we want to make sure that they're fed when they're doing their work. You want to make sure that they have that food right through the growing season and through their fruiting season, and then you want to shut them down. You want to make sure that they can use up those nutrients through mid to late summer, and that they can go dormant and get a good night's sleep. And again, the element, the fertilizer brand you're using, or the 3-number balance on the bag is important. if I'm growing a tree, I just planted a young tree and I want to establish a structure on it, I'm going to use something that's a little higher in nitrogen. So, you know, maybe the nitrogen is going to be the highest number on the bag and the other two elements are 2/3 or half as much. But once I get that tree up to size after 2 or 3 years, I've developed the size that I want. Now I'm going to change gears. Now I want fruit. So I don't want the high nitrogen anymore. I want to go with as low a nitrogen as possible with a higher phosphorus and potash, zinc, iron, manganese, maybe a humic acid base. So that's going to give me root stability, and it's going to give me a long, strong flower set. Yes, Martha. No, probably 3 times. So end of January, 1st of February, middle of April, end of June, 1st of July. Anything else? Yeah, you can use coco coir, which is kind of going to be the horticultural replacement for peat moss. It's not as acidic, so you're going to make sure that the fertilizer that you're using is more acid based than just a chemical type fertilizer. And blueberries don't like a lot of nitrogen, so you would use something like a Grow Power Flower and Bloom 3-12-12 with a humic acid base. That's perfect for blueberries. It's going to give you root stability, strong flower, and there's not enough nitrogen to do any damage. Fruiting companion plants? Not. Oh yeah, anything that's acid loving. Gardenias, azaleas, camellias. No, they're not producing acid. They need acid. No, you got to supplement that. Yes. Pardon, I can't hear you. Grow Power has gone out of business, but they gave everybody a year's supply. And there is a company right now that is taking over their recipes. So another company will be back within the year's period of time, hopefully, if everything gets worked out. Callie. Mm-hmm. Those are interspecific, so they're within the same genus, Prunus, but they're 2 different species. So apricot by plum, plum by apricot, apricot by cherry, plum by cherry, nectarine by plum. They're all interspecific hybrids of 2 different species. In an apium, the apricot would be the maternal parent. In a pluot, the plum would be the maternal parent. Yeah. Although they're not F1 hybrids. Most of the interspecifics that are out now are F6, F8, F10, F12. So they've been hybridizing and rehybridizing generation after generation after generation. Is that it? Oh, one more. Most of the red flesh varieties, like the blood type peaches, Indian blood, they're much higher chill than what you're going to get here in Orange County. I don't know of a variety that I would say is adaptable to Orange County conditions. To grow them, yeah, you need 700 to 800 chill hours, which you're not going to get here. Cherry Valley, Yucaipa, that area, you're going to get it. Yeah. Sounds high, but I'm not a scientist, so if you look at goji berries, I'm not going to eat 3.5 ounces of goji berries, but the estimate on that was like 25,000 ORAC units for 3.5 ounces of goji berries. And again, they're just approximate. They're just estimates. I do not know. All right, thank you very much. Oh, one thing I will mention. Basically, everything I talked about tonight is concept. So we have all different concepts of how we're going to grow fruit trees in our landscape. Everybody's always concerned with pruning. So are you guys familiar with this book? So this book is how to grow, how to prune fruit trees and roses. This book was originally published in 1944 by a horticulturalist named Sanford Martin. He's in San Diego, California. Martin wanted to come up with a handbook on pruning that was something that the average person could conceive easily. So it was very simple to read. The book was republished 24 times until about 2017, when my friends at Walter Anderson Nursery purchased the rights to the book, and they asked me if I would work with them on revising it. And one of the things that I said was, I'll work with you on revising it, but I want all of Martin's information left intact. I think he did a great job when he wrote it. I love his little hand-drawn diagrams. They're very thorough, they're very effective. And I said I'd be more than happy to work with him. So we added some categories. My friend Ken Anderson added roses. We've added citrus, avocados, subtropicals. We put a backyard orchard culture techniques in there. I did a preface for him. So I donated a couple of these to your, what did you guys call that? Opportunity drawing tonight. And so just kind of on a whim, I had sent Ken an email, made some comments, and he said, well, I like that. I'm going to use that for the preface. I'll read it to you. New gardeners will always have questions and concerns. Never be afraid to ask for help from a veteran grower or your local retail nursery. That being said, best way to accumulate experience and knowledge is to spend time with your trees. You'll notice when the trees begin to grow in the spring, when and where the blooms form, how long the flowers take to set small fruit. You'll watch as the fruit progresses through the season. You'll begin to identify if and when you have an issue, insect, disease. Being observant of these issues is the key to success. See how the tree's growth slows in the fall, enjoy the spectacular fall colors and the calm of the winter dormant season. Just like an old friend, the only way to get to know something or someone is to spend time with them. And I know you guys do that. I know you guys follow that philosophy. I get questions all the time. Well, how do I know where the tree fruits? How do I know when it's going to bloom? How do I know when the fruit is ripe? The more time you spend in your landscape, the more time you spend working with your trees, you'll become that veteran grower. You'll be the ones that understand. Hey, it blooms at this time of year. I know when the flowers come. I know when I have to take care of issues. I've seen that now. You know, there's some scale on my Meyer lemon, some aphid on my plum tree, peach leaf curl on my peach tree. So you'll be able to identify these issues before they become a problem. So don't be afraid to spend time with your trees. It's a great way to enjoy your leisure. Trees are my psychiatrist. Trees don't talk back. Trees don't argue with you. Trees don't get in traffic on the 210 freeway. So I love to spend time in my landscape. I've created a landscape over the past 27 years that we've been in our house, and it's a place where I love to be. It's a place where I take a lot of pride, and a place where I enjoy going. I like to watch my granddaughters eating blueberries. I like to watch my dogs chasing squirrels. So, you know, do that. Create a landscape that you love. Be in peace with it and spend as much time there as you can. Get to know your trees. Thank you.